Everyone, our topic for today is about obtaining and understanding the client's business and environment. So this topic is under audit planning. So when we say audit planning, it involves developing a general audit strategy and a detailed approach for the expected conduct of audit. So the auditor's main objective in planning the audit is to determine the scope of the audit procedures to be performed. So the auditor should plan the audit work so that the audit will be performed in an effective and efficient manner. So according to PSA 315, it requires the auditor to obtain sufficient understanding and its environment, including internal control, and also identifying the risk of material misstatement. So when we say obtaining the knowledge of the entity or the industry, it means that you should know about. First is the industry, regulatory, and other external factors, including financial reporting and framework. Next is that you should know the nature of the entities, including the entity selection and application of accounting policies. And next is the objective and strategies and the related business risk that may result in a material misstatement of the financial statement. And of course, you should know about the internal control of the entity. So next is the auditor should obtain a sufficient level of knowledge of the entity's business so that business to identify and understand the events, transaction, and practices that may have significant effect of the financial statement. So it is better that the auditor understand the client's operation, because if they understand it better, they are more efficient in the examination. It is likely to be the greater value of the client of the auditor's services. So if the auditor understands the operation of the client, so the auditor is often to be able to evaluate the reasonableness of the client's estimate. So next is that the auditor should obtain a sufficient level of knowledge of the entity's business. So balik ta. Next is the knowledge of the entity would include understanding the entity's objective, strategies, and related business risk. So, an auditor's understanding of business risk encountered by the entity increases the likelihood of identifying risk of material misstatement and helps the auditor design appropriate audit procedures. Furthermore, the auditor should obtain understanding of the entity's measurement of performance, as this may create pressures on the entities that may either motivate the management to take action to improve the business performance or to manipulate the financial statement. So, what are the sources of the information of the auditor? So, the auditor can obtain knowledge of the industry and the entity of the number of sources. So, these two sources are the best way to gather information. So, first is the review of prior year's working paper. So, um, kind of this review of prior year's working paper is only applicable for old clients. So since they do have um, data in the previous year, so they just have to review that working papers. So next is the tour of clients' facility. So this kind of gathering of information is only applicable for the new clients. Other term for this is audit tour. So it is important to have a source of information so that you can have a legit data from the business. Yes. So next is the uses of information obtained. So knowledge of the client's business is a frame of reference within which the auditor exercises professional judgment. Understanding the business and using this information appropriately assess the auditor. So how does it assess the auditor? So first, it helps to assess the risk. It assesses the risk and identify the potential problem. Next is the planning and performing the audit effectively and efficiently. And lastly, it provides a better service to the client. So that is why information is very important in audit planning. So next is the obtaining understanding of the client's business is an iterative process. So when we say iterative process, it is a continuous and cumulative process. Next one is the So for continuing engagement, the auditor should update and reevaluate the information gathered previously, including information in the prior year's working paper. So as what I said earlier, for the sources of information, the best way to gather information is to review the prior year's working paper, and it's only applicable for old clients only. So they just have to reevaluate and update the information they gathered previously. So it's very cost effective. Yes, so next is the so for first time audit, so it requires more work than a repeat engagement because of the problem associated with the verification of the opening balances of the balance sheet account. So, diba, for the sources of information, for the new client, it is the auditor or tour of clients' facilities. So, for first-time audit, it is more complicated since they have to gather evidence which is according to PSA 510. So, what are those? So, the opening balances do not contain misstatement that materially affect the current year's financial statement. Next is the prior period's closing balance have been correctly brought forward to the current period or when appropriate have been restated, and appropriate accounting policies and consistently applied or changes in accounting policies have been properly accounted and adequately disclosed. So for the first time audit, it is more complicated and have a lot of work to do. Yes. Next is the understanding entity and its environment. So what are the procedure used to understand the entity and its environment? So first is the inquiry. So when we say inquiry, it is the auditor will usually obtain most of the info they require from staff, but may also need to make inquiries from other personnel like internal audits, sales and marketing department, and other stuff. So inquiry, mag-inquire lang ka, yun, mga ka sa mga stuff about the entity. So next is the analytical procedure. When we say analytical procedure, it consists of evaluation of financial information made by a study of possible relationship among both financial or non-financial data. So next one is the observation and inspection. So these techniques likely confirm the answer made to inquiries made by the management. So what are those? For example, you have to observe the normal operation of the company. You have to read the documents or manuals or even visit the premises and meeting the staff. So those three are the procedures that we'll use to understand the entity and its environment. So that's it. Thank you everyone and God bless. Goodbye.